Two of my favorite pieces of gear that have come out this year are the Fractal VP4 and the Soldano X88IR. In the demo video that I did for the X88IR, I used a bunch of effects from the VP4. I just had it hooked up in the effects loop. I got a lot of questions about what I was using and how I would use these together if I was going to use them, say, in a live setting. So I'm going to show you how you can set up the VP4 and the X88 with a MIDI to work together so that we can change between scenes on the VP4 and then the channels and the modes on the X88. Luckily, there are software editors for both of these, which makes getting all of this set up so much more straightforward than the good old days of trying to program a rack from the front panel or a foot switch on there. The connections on this are really straightforward. I'm just going from the effects send to the VP4 input, then the stereo outs of the VP4 are going back to the stereo effects return of the X88. Then I'm taking a MIDI cable from the VP4 to the MIDI in of the X88. Both of these units are set on MIDI channel number 1. If you've got all of that, we can go. We're going to program everything using the respective software editors for each device. I've got VP4 edit open at the moment and the Soldano editor. So let's take a look at what we've got in the VP4. This is the same preset that I used in my demo video of the X88IR to provide all the effects, and I've just got the VP4 connected in the stereo effects loop of the X88. I've got the Dimension 1 chorus, I've got some greasy dual D tune, I've got a stereo BBD delay type, and the gold plate reverb. These are all from my blocks library, which is linked in the video description. Then on the Soldano, I have set up 4 presets. So preset number 1 is using the crunch mode of channel 2. Preset number 2 is using the overdrive mode of channel 3. Preset number 3, which is set to program change 2, is set as just the clean channel normal mode. And then the last preset is the altered mode of the clean channel. So very straightforward the way this is all going to work. I am going to select a different scene on the VP4, and using the new scene MIDI function over here, I'm just going to send a single program change from the VP4 to the Soldano. So when I'm on scene 1, it's going to send value 0 to the Soldano, and value 0 was the crunch mode of channel 2. When I go to scene 2 on the VP4, that's going to send a program change value of 1, which is going to take us over here on the Soldano. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to use the physical VP4 to switch through my different programs over here, and you will see the editor change in real time. That's also changing the physical unit on there. So we'll just start out on scene 1. There's going to be a bunch of different effects kick in, but you'll see the Soldano editor change. Actually, if I move it over here, you might see a little bit more of it. Look at that. We can see both of them. So let's do it. Really straightforward. Again, I'm just sending a program change per scene on the VP4, and each of those program changes corresponds to a preset that's stored in the X88. Very straightforward MIDI stuff there. I should also go through each of these scenes. We heard just that gold plate reverb for the crunch sound. For the lead, I had the dual D tune, I had the stereo BBD, but I actually switched over to a large chamber reverb on there. For the clean, I'm using the Dimension chorus and that dual D tune. That's kind of the magic recipe for 80s style cleans. And again, using that large chamber. And then for the pushed sound, it's actually a dual delay with a very low mix and the gold plate again. So that's basic program change functionality. We can go further and use some MIDI CCs. Okay, let's go to this preset over here. I've called it X88.2. And what I'm going to control here is I am going to change the functions on each channel. So on the X88, on channel 2, you can have it in crunch or overdrive mode. Same thing in channel 3. You can have it on crunch or overdrive mode. Now, on the physical unit, I've set up the controls on channel 3 differently. There's less gain and less mids on channel 2, but there's more gain and more mids on channel 3. Furthermore, if we have a look over here, the way I've set up my program changes is that program change 0, which before was just the crunch mode of channel 2, has the virtual cab depth and presence both in the middle. If I go over to channel 3, which at the moment is on program change number 1, it's got the presence on this far right setting. And remember, there's also more gain and more mid-range here. And normally it's on the overdrive mode. But what I want to do is to basically select either the crunch or overdrive on each of those channels. So this is how I can do it on the VP4. If I go to scene 1, my very first thing that I'm sending again is that same program change. So I'm just sending on channel 1 a value of 0. So it's going to select that first preset, which is channel 2 crunch mode. That's how it's saved. But if I go to scene 2, CC25 on the X88 will toggle between the mode on each channel. So if I set it to 0, it's going to give me the crunch mode of channel 2. But if I set it to 127, it's going to give me the overdrive mode. So let's have a look at this. When I switch between them, I'm going to switch scenes, which is going to switch which effects are engaged on the VP4. But it's also going to stay on the same program of the X88. It's just going to basically flick a virtual toggle switch for me. So I'll move this over here so that we can see it. The VP4, again, is going to change scene, but we're going to stay on the same channel and just basically kick into the overdrive mode. Basically, it's just kicking in that extra amount of gain, and I'm also kicking in some extra greasy effects. With scene 3 and scene 4, this time I'm sending a program change value of 1, which we remember on the Soldano, program change of 1 changes me to channel 3. But this time I want to toggle from overdrive to crunch. So when I go from scene 3 to scene 4, again, the toggle CC number is number 25, but then I can toggle from the highest value to the lowest value to change that. So you can see here, when I hit CC 25, I change modes on the X88IR. Let's do that again. So you can see I'm on the overdrive mode. And when I do this, I'm on the crunch mode, and I can do that with scenes. So basically, the way I've done this is essentially, instead of just having channel 2 and channel 3, one set as crunch, one set as overdrive, I can set them up differently and toggle between crunch and overdrive on each channel. So this basically will turn my 3-channel preamp, because there's basically 2 things we can toggle between on each mode, into a 6-channel preamp. I could also send individual CCs to control things like the IR selection on the X88IR, the high pass, low pass, presence, and depth. There is a MIDI CC list included in the editor, which is super handy. And just using the editors together is very, very straightforward once you wrap your head around the difference between program changes and MIDI CCs on there. I really like being able to set up channel 2 and channel 3 with different EQ and gain amounts, and then switch between the actual individual modes, so crunch or overdrive on there, and sync all of that up with scenes. Furthermore, I could just have a list of presets on the VP4 which does this, and I could integrate it with the X88 for different gigging or recording situations on there. Having this level of control is pretty amazing. I mean, we've got a great sounding rack preamp, and we've got a small DC powered pedal that can replace an entire rack. What a time to be alive. So that's how I've set up the VP4 with my X88IR. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments section below. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel and you want to support it directly, there's links to my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. Like that riff I play all the time. That's a Ragdoll song. I'd love it if you went and checked out some of the tunes we make. Otherwise, I'll play you all out with some of these lovely greasy sounds from the Soldano and the VP4. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time.